Salutations. As a former retail worker, having worked in the belly of the retail beast known as Walmart, this fireside chat is addressed to anyone who works in retail or who knows and loves someone who works in retail. As we are in the midst of an unprecedented supply chain crisis and the oncoming specter of the holiday shopping season looming so ever ominously closer, being overworked and understaffed, this is indeed one of the most difficult and harrowing periods for anyone to don a vest and work at a big box store to make ends meet. I know how you feel and what you go through, as I went through such working for the cult of Sam Walton, aka Walmart, for most of 2020 and through the first half of 2021. If I may share my experience and sentiments with those who wish to listen. The moment you sign on to work for Walmart or any big box store, you sign away your individuality, your dignity, your time, your humanity to become the property of the company store. You are no longer a human being. You are a number. You are allocated 3 excused absences. You must clock in and clock out on time, on the dot, every day. There is no overtime pay. Points will be accrued for attendance infractions, and any more than 5 points, 5, even if you have legitimate reasons for being late, you are out of the job. Human Resources, which is barely functional, doesn't even handle callouts. The centralized Sedgwick 1-800 employee number must be contacted, where an automated system records absences and tardies. The associate has to memorize their 9-digit Walmart ID number, enter their store number, their birthday, and then write down a confirmation code, confirming their absence. Such convolution, right? What if an associate's house is on fire and they do not have their cellular device with them? Then what? What if there's a serious medical emergency and the associate doesn't have the wherewithal to go through all these steps to report that they're going to be absent? I don't know. Maybe they're having a cardiac arrest. Points will be accrued anyway. And if the store manager isn't a reasonable person, those points will remain. There are also the extremely patronizing computer-based learning modules, CBL modules, you must complete every other month, relative to how to respond to mass shootings, fires, accidents, spills, and how to catch people shoplifting. If you don't complete the CBL modules, points will accrue, and you will be terminated for failing to comply with company policy. CBLs indirectly contribute to the shortage of labor as workers are pulled from their tasks to complete these modules at irregular intervals, which means the burden of responsibility falls upon other workers who are to take on more tasks while someone is completing CBLs. To management, you are not someone who has any talent, any dreams, any hopes, any goals, or any feelings. You are absolutely nobody. You are just a piece of meat there to make sales, move freight, offload trucks, stock inventory, perform maintenance, and perform asset protection to prevent shrink from occurring so corporate can maximize profits at your expense and give you a meager monthly bonus at the end of the month. 10 hours of your life every day is planned down to the second from the moment you clock in to the moment you clock out. At bare minimum, you are allocated 2 15-minute breaks and 1 hour of unpaid lunch. You are also discouraged from fraternizing with your fellow coworkers. Management does not want you speaking to one another despite cultivating this whole "we are one big family" nonsense. A family that is discouraged from speaking with one another relative to weighty matters that are outside the parameters of corporate's profit motive. What more, you aren't even promised your breaks or your lunch because you are not promised a routine. At any moment at Walmart, you can be pulled to perform any task the assistant manager or coach, as they are termed there, even if you're doing something productive like fixing up the store's aisles, constantly left a mess by absent-minded customers, even if you're doing your departmental responsibilities, you can be pulled. Every aspect of your existence within the cult of Sam Walton must be related to 100% productivity relative to profit margins, and all tasks must be delegated by middle management. In my case, my coworkers and I had to put up with an abhorrently obnoxious assistant store manager intoxicated on his own vainglorious semblance of authority and overinflated self-importance at the Plainfield, New Jersey Walmart of Route 22. Let's call him Mehmet the Seventh, the tin pot dictator of the Walmart empire, as he thinks of himself. Mehmet the Seventh, on multiple occasions, has aggressively vocalized arbitrary edicts to associates. If you don't do A, B, and C within this time frame, we're going to go to the front office. I'm going to write you up and give you points. You can be replaced with somebody who is willing to work. You understand? He'll say something like that. Or, here, you cannot do anything you feel like. Even if you're doing something productive, management has to give the approval first. The store pulls in 10 millions of dollars every day. You cannot commit acts of insubordination by ignoring the commands of management. This creates an unproductive and toxic work environment which affects our bottom line and our monthly bonuses. Every 2 minutes, literally every 2 minutes, Mehmet the Seventh would be spouting non-stop orders on the walkie-talkie, practicing a form of never-ending micromanagement, alienating and demoralizing fellow associates. On one occasion, I was writing down a few notes for the manuscript that I'm working on in a notebook, and he comes up and he coaches me for engaging in time theft, as if I were stealing from company time. Never mind the fact that on 2 separate occasions, Mehmet the Seventh was caught in 2 different stores engaging in very crass acts of sexual misconduct with other coworkers. But the lowly associate that I am gets accused of stealing company time because I'm writing down manuscript notes during downtime. Mehmet the Seventh was such an egomaniacal manager. A fellow coworker in stocking quit and then proceeded to punch the despot in the face while marching out of the store. Another coworker, a young autistic female in her early 20s, was reduced to tears, sobbing uncontrollably on the floor of the women's restroom after she was berated for not packing out fast enough. And it doesn't stop there. No. Anyone who Mehmet the Seventh perceived as weak or as a pushover, he would abuse them to no end, like a grade school bully almost. However, his neurotic and aggressive disposition was a detriment to company profits anyway. So, listen, as you have heard before, Mehmet the Seventh and I have clashed horns. And not just on that one occasion either, but on several occasions, because listen, as someone who was involved with the foundation of Occupy Wall Street back in 2011 and who stood down lines of machine gun-toting riot cops with only a camera to live stream it, all at protests all across the United States from 2011 to 2014, I refused to allow myself to be compliant to Mehmet's promotion-thirsty and opprobrious disposition. One occasion, I decided to use his own abusive propensity for micromanagement against him. My official position at Walmart was to work the e-commerce department. In many cases, working e-commerce, what should have been a 4-person team, I was often left alone to run the department by myself. I had the knowledge to dispense hundreds of orders, both inside and outside, do in-person shopping, although I was instructed and reprimanded by management and corporate not to omit orders even though what was ordered was clearly not on the shelves due to the supply chain shortage, and often had to substitute items to the dismay of the customer, answer phone inquiries, and perform express orders, which are to be prioritized over all in-store operations, as such orders are on demand and time limited, to be dispensed to DoorDash drivers to deliver to people who will not shop in person themselves. And I wish to believe that this is due to a person's legitimate inability of doing so and not outright laziness, but I don't have that much faith in people who pay for others to shop for them. And if you are working by yourself in this department, this translates into longer lines at the e-commerce desk, and longer lines in the parking lot, and more irate customers, all because the only person working in e-commerce is busy taking care of priority orders because someone doesn't want to shop for themselves and the store won't hire more help. On one very memorable occasion, Mehmet VII decides to pull me from my official position, to have me put up holiday fixtures, pack out boxes, offload the truck, and demand that I follow every edict that he vocalized, because this was a retaliation against me for using my phone the prior day during downtime. And he replaces me with someone who did not know how to run the e-commerce department. And I openly laughed at Mehmet VII, flanked by other coworkers, and mocked him in the back, telling him that he did not know what the hell he was doing, which I received a coaching for, which went in one ear and out the other. Obviously, he did not know what he was doing, because 4 express orders came later that day, which were left unfulfilled, and I deliberately ignored my departmental tasks and responsibilities in e-commerce to pack out shelves and follow every order given to me by Mehmet VII, and my willful disengagement from my departmental duties, and would cost the store over $1,000 for that day. Obviously, Mehmet VII was the one who got in trouble because he decided to switch me for someone who did not know how to run the e-commerce department. All because Mehmet put his own personal grudge against me before the profit margins of the store, which as an assistant store manager, he was supposed to be primarily concerned with. Just because I'm 5'4" doesn't mean I'm stupid or a pushover, because I'm shorter than average height. But apparently, Mehmet VII didn't get the memo. Last I heard, Mehmet has since moved on to another Walmart within Hudson County, New Jersey, to unleash his abuse and pettiness directed towards hardworking people who are just doing their best to make ends meet while having some semblance of dignity. But I digress. I can imagine that tyrannical assistant store managers like Mehmet VII are not a rarity, but a commonality all throughout big box stores all throughout the United States, lording over these stores not as retail stores, but as modern day plantations, acting more or less like overseers and less so, in fact, as assistant store managers. Despotic middle management, making the lives of rank-and-file workers through micromanagement, intimidation, and humiliation absolutely miserable, because middle management is addicted to the dopamine that comes with being the decision maker as to who will get to eat and who will get to starve, all based around enforcing anti-human big box store company policies, forcing desperate workers struggling to provide for themselves and their families, breaking their backs, carrying 400-pound grills while simultaneously walking on eggs placed on the floor by middle management, and being reprimanded by middle management if any of those eggs break, for 10 or more hours a day for less than a living wage. To the customer, expressing no sense of solidarity, you as the worker are the end-all to be-all scapegoat, and for the customer to punch down on, figuratively speaking, in some cases even literally. To the customer, you are not a person. To them, you are what video gamers term as a non-playable character, to continually be harassed and abused to the customer's satisfaction. Even when you are busy moving freight or packing out shelves or performing your duties that management has placed before you, you will hear, "Excuse me, do you work here?" You will be asked a plethora of questions from, "Where is the cereal aisle?" when the suspended sign clearly indicates where it is and it's right above your head. Or questions about, "What is the best battery for their car, or why don't you have any Lysol, when evidently there is a pandemic, or bothered for a set of keys to access the makeup case when customers should know that associates don't carry keys. Management carries keys. Or asked if you can go to the back to fetch something that is not on the shelves and specifically for them, as if the world exclusively revolves around them. Such poor etiquette displayed by customers, of course, will distract you from your duties, which if you don't perform, will get you reprimanded by management. The worst customer is the customer who will go up to you and demand to see a manager because they aren't satisfied by a particular product, or they aren't satisfied with your attitude. As if you really want to call upon the person who is breathing down your neck almost every waking moment, making your life miserable, to be in your presence, to breathe down your neck some more, while the customer breathes down your neck at the same time. If the average customer at the big box store is an aggregate representation of the general public as a whole, the general public within the United States displays extremely poor etiquette toward rank and file workers. They are rude, obstinate, and self-motivated. If for whatever reason anyone has to go to a big box store to buy whatever, their first thought should not be based around themselves. Their first thought should be, how can I not make the lives of people working here more difficult than their lives already are? They wonder why service workers display defensive attitudes. Maybe they should look in the mirror and understand that just because they're the customer doesn't mean they're always right, especially when it comes to treating workers like just getting by so poorly, especially during a pandemic. Reciprocity is a two-way street. Why would I put myself through all of that? Well, like most people who work in retail, lack of other options is the prime factor. For many, there is no other choice. My case was unique, as I've been working in the tourism industry for the past 7 years at that time, and the pandemic shut down tourism, which prompted me to take up a job in retail, a career that I spent 20,000 hours worth of my personal time invested in, which also got me featured in the New York Times twice and cited in 4 PhD dissertations, went up in smoke. I became a nameless essential worker. Prompting my departure from retail was another manager, we'll call him Demon because he certainly was no angel, rudely told me that I was never going to get my old job back and that I needed to focus on keeping my position at Walmart while he was forcing another worker to time me to offload 3 Top Star carts in 20 minutes. You know what? I threw all the boxes to the ground. That's what I did. And then the next day, I left. I quit. Following day, that's exactly what happened. And you know what else happened? I got my job as a tour guide back. Oh. I have no intention of ever returning to the retail industry, but that doesn't mean that I don't have solidarity for those who labor in between the aisles and down in freight. I think about my former coworkers and the forgotten people who labor within retail to make ends meet almost every day. Which takes us to the present. We are a week separated from November 2021. With the supply chain throttled due to the absence of 80,000 trucking positions, and with store shelves becoming ever the more barren by the week, the holiday shopping season inches closer. 1 million different variants of "All I Want for Christmas is You" for 2 months straight will be coalescing from the audio system of the big box retailers as a form of soft psychological abuse to workers who are already psychologically abused enough. Management is at its most tyrannical, customers are at their rudest, all centered around mindless, wanton consumerism. I know, I worked Black Friday all throughout 2020. My message is plain and simple. Due to matters beyond your own control relative to the supply chain, if you, as a retail worker, are being pressured, harassed, or even intimidated, do not let middle management or customers abuse you. If you have enough to sustain yourself for a few months, stand up for yourselves and walk out. You are under no obligation to be Santa's little nameless elves with limited products to sell and to be lashed with a psychological whip to pack out limited products as soon as you can, which vicious customers will literally assault one another to get their hands on at a risk to your own well-being. You deserve dignity, respect, and to be treated like human beings. For those who cannot afford to walk out, if management does not appreciate your labor and threatens to fire you for not working hard enough, do not be intimidated. Call them on their bluff and continue to work at your own pace. Document everything. Write it down, photograph it, film it, or even live stream it. If you still get fired for speaking out, then bring up wrongful termination at your unemployment hearing, which can be interpreted by various states as being fired for acting as a whistleblower and complaining about workplace issues, or for not being or for not being willing to commit an illegal act when asked by an employer to commit such an act. This is the time to stand up for yourself. Protect your mental health, your physical health, and your own well-being. Withhold your time and your labor if your time and your labor is not being appreciated. You are worth more than you know. You are worth more than what management tells you. You are not expendable. During this holiday season, you let your employers know how valuable you are when they cannot make a profit off of you. Santa has been winning the war on Christmas for far too long. It is time for the elves to win. This is Comrade Pella, signing out.